We are gathered here on this Halloween morning to figure out why this radiator fan is always on. It's actually been a while since we've worked on the VW GTI. Remember, I bought this thing way back in February, and here it is, Halloween, October. And remember, it had a blown head, so it was overheating. And so I put a motor in it, and then I haven't really done anything since February because I've been busy working on the truck. So we're going to tackle three things on this car today. Before the sun goes down and the witches come out. This is pretty common. These radiator fans are always on. So we need to diagnose why it's always on, because this car overheated, right? So we want these radiator fans working right. Number two, we have a lot of engine misfires on the coils. We got to check engine code for a bunch of that. And then the blower motor, for the AC blower motor on the inside dash, it only runs on high speed. So we've got three big things that are really common on these cars. We're going to see if we can fix these all before the sun goes down and the witches come out. So let's figure out why these fans are always on. Okay, so we just started the car. Fans are off, and now here they go. They're already on. The car is cold, and both fans are on. And they'll just stay on all the time. So this is going to wear out these motors really fast. Let's figure out what we got going on. So if you see way down there is the plug connector for the fans. Let's disconnect that. Okay, what are we going to need? We're going to need a voltmeter and probably our OBD scanner. So let's take this out. So I pulled the big electrical connector, up so I can get to it. Hook up your gauge, hook up your ground. So let's just see what we got here. So obviously these big ones are battery power. And that's the main battery power, and this one's going to be the ground. But what I'm really concerned about is these two right here. Which one is going to be 12 volt positive, and which one is going to be the signal wire from the computer. So this one is nothing, and that one right there is battery power. So the battery power one, let's see, battery power is it's blue. And then the white one is going to be signal wire. So what we want to test right now is the computer signal wire. So I'm on the white one. The computer is actually right here. So with the key off, I'm at 0.4 volts. So I actually have a computer signal wire with the key off, telling the fans to be off. Let's turn the key switch on. With the key switch on, it went up to 0.9 to 1 volt. Let's start it. Just started it, and it just went to 1.7. See, it was at 0.00. Now it's at 2. And so that would be, when it hits 2 volts, that would be it telling this fan to actually turn on and stay on. So it is getting a signal from the ECU to be on. So it's not the fan, there is a fan control module. Here, I'll show you. So here's another fan. This is actually a control module that controls with the big cord. So now you can really see it. with the big power and ground, big power, big ground, and then there's going to be a battery voltage, and then there's going to be a signal wire. But this is actually a control module, and it's built into the fan. So right now, the EC with the car running, it tells it to be off for like a couple seconds. As soon as you start the car, it's off for 2 seconds, and then it sends a signal saying turn on. So it is getting a signal of 2.0 volts. So we know so now it's at 2.3 volts. So now that the car is off again, it's down to 0.5 volts. So it's continually sending a signal, even though the car is off. It's using 0.5 volts, telling this fan to stay off. And then when we start it, it goes up to 2 volts, telling it to be on. So it is getting a signal. So it's not the fan control module on this fan. That's the problem. Let's go somewhere else. So on the scanner, we do have a code for engine coolant signal too high on the radiator outlet. So there are 2 temperature sending units on here. One right here on the head, side of the head. That is the engine temp on the thermostat, so that's the hot. And then there's one here, down here on the lower radiator hose, saying that the signal's too high. So we need to check these out. So if we look on our OBD here, this one's more of the more expensive one, but it is designed for the Volkswagens, Audis. But we can see the engine temperature is at 118 because we started it for a second here. So we do know that the thermostat one is reading hot, but I don't see anywhere where the fan, the second one on the lower radiator hose is. So on the back of the head, on the thermostat housing, is the engine temperature sending unit right there. Engine temperature sending unit right here with the plug. And then the other one, you will find the best thing to do is to actually take off your intake air pipe, and it's right behind here. It's a part of the lower hose over here. It's hard to see. You can get to it underneath. But here, if I show you on my old engine that we took out. So let me show you on the engine we took out. So here's the lower hose. And you can see it's right next to the oil cooler coming off here behind your end. But all you got to do is pull the clip and pull this out. So pull the clip, and then these actually just pop right out. And there's a rubber O-ring, right? So you grease that up before you put it in, and it'll slide right back in. So what we want to do is we want to test this one, and we'll test, and then the one on the back of the thermostat housing, right? So here's the old thermostat housing on the back of the head. It has the same sending unit on it. All right, so I took the fan switch out of the reservoir, and because I can't see it on the OBD scanner, what I'm going to do, I mean, you could dip this in hot water and take a resistance test, which we can do that. But what I'm going to do is unplug the engine one and plug the wire into it, and it'll pop up here. And we can at least test this sensor real quick. Okay, so we have the engine temp plugged in, and the engine temperature is at 118 degrees because we fired this car up. So let's plug in this other one from the fan relay and see what it comes up to. Okay, but if we want to take a resistance test, just so you know, if this is how you want to do it, we're at 1.68. So we're at 1.69, 1.7. And then obviously, if you put this in hot water, it's going to work its way down to like almost zero. Okay, so what do we know? The fan control module is working. The ECU seems to be working. This one is working. The fan switch is good. What's left? I mean, it could be the AC, but if that was the case, only this AC fan would come on and not both of them. So we're looking at some bad wiring here. I usually do wiring last because it's pretty rare, but we do have something going on with this wiring. What we need to do is test for ground and 5-volt references. I'm going to start with the good one and see what that goes to, and then I'm going to check where we think the problem is, which is down here on the fan switch one. Let's turn the key on. We should have 5-volt reference. Okay, key on. We have the 5-volt reference. And if we go to ground, just check the ground again. That's right. And then we have ground. So that's the known good one. Let's check the fan relay one underneath the car. So let's test the ground. Okay, so the ground is working. And then now let's test the 5-volt reference. I got 0 5-volt reference. Well, at least we know what it is. We don't have a 5-volt reference. Most likely we've got a broken wire between here and this ECU somewhere in this wiring harness. Give me a second. Let's look around. So what I did was I followed the wiring right here, all that wiring, and it comes to this plug right there, the 4 plug. So it comes to this plug right here, and that white one was broke. So I went ahead and put it back on, tested it. Now we're at 5 volts. so we're good. Let's start it up, see how the fans work. Okay, so they're off. Get the car running. We're good. Now that the fans are fixed and we know it's not going to overheat, let's figure out what's up with this misfire. So you can see how rough it's running because it's actually shaking a little bit. Luckily, this car has a boost gauge over here, so we can actually look at the vacuum and we can see it's sitting right around 16, which is actually low. See that mess? So at 3,000 RPM. First thing you do when you see an engine misfire code on cylinder number 4, but actually it's jumping around. Sometimes it says 2, sometimes it says 1 and 3 or multiple. So the first thing I'm going to do, I went ahead and changed all the coils actually. I put all new coils on them from the other motor. It didn't make a bit of difference. It's still running rough and throwing codes like crazy. Actually it ran worse on these black ones because these are the red tops. They're a little bit more high voltage. So, what's the next step? Is to, I had some codes for like low boost and, vacuum pressure sensor was malfunctioning and, air leak kind of stuff. And so I'm like, you know what? So a lot of times on these VWs, especially the turbos, this PCV system will backfeed and you'll get turbo pressure into the crankcase. In fact, just the other day, I saw a YouTube video of a guy who he blew up the rear main seal and was just throwing oil all over it because this was back feeding turbo pressure into the crankcase. But they'll actually suck a lot of air. So I think it's sucking air, and it may be having turbo boost go in. So a lot of times what I'll do on a lot of my cars is I'll put in these catch cans. So that's probably what, but let's test this system real quick. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect it right here. Well, actually not there. Let's disconnect it here. And I'll take the rubber seal, and we'll just totally disconnect it. So now we have full vacuum, and let's see what the difference is. I'll tell you what, let's do a test on this PCV to see if it's back feeding turbo boost into the crankcase. So let's take the oil cap off, take a rubber glove, the old rubber glove trick, and then put some air through it and see if it back feeds. Yep, it definitely back feeding. So we're getting turbo boost into here. Yeah, definitely a problem there. Now that's running a lot smoother and quicker just by plugging that off. Let's change this real quick. Let's plug this back in and plug it over here, because this is the vacuum gauge to my boost gauge. So if we hook it up differently, I can get my vacuum gauge working. Okay, so I plugged this back in because there's this hose right here goes up to the vacuum and boost gauge, and then I plug this side of the vent. So the PCV is disconnected right now. Okay, let's test this now. Now you can see by disconnecting that vacuum, look at, I'm at 22 now. Remember I was at 16? Look at how much more vacuum I have. That's why it's running smoother. And at high RPM. Look at the vacuum at 3,000 RPM. So now we look at the vacuum at 3,000 RPM. So here we'll go into the garage. So here's my VW Tiguan, my road trip car. And you can see how I put a catch can on this one. Right there is my catch can. And I just ran that over to the PCV system. And that's how I run this car. So if you want to know where I put the catch can, I put it right here and bolted it to these two bolts right there. That's pretty clean. Cool. Now it's running awesome. Now what's next is we got to fix this blower motor because it only works in high speed. So to fix this blower motor, it's usually the resistors. But you can see when you turn it on, nothing. And then when you go to 4, that's it. So you really only have high speed. And normally it's those resistors. So let's swap it. So you can see under the dash by the blower motor is the big wires going to the resistor right there. So on this one, all you got to do is put the tag, there's no, and just pull it out. There you go. So we can test this one. Test this resistor, 0.2, and this one is dead. So usually most of the time, the thing that goes bad is the darn resistor. Says 2400 on it. So I bet you could just change the diode on that old one. Save yourself a bunch of money, because this is 50 bucks. So with the new one in, we can test it. Three, two, one. All right, so the blower motor's fixed. Cool. So we fixed a lot of things on this car on this Halloween day. I think it's ready to fly, if you know what I mean.